All right, Shabbat Shalom, we are live.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We'll begin on page 70. Hine Matov. How tov is it?
It's
How-
very tov.
Exactly.
Tov me'od.
It's so good to be together, Shevet Achim Gam Yachad, sitting together. Ooh, Yachad, together. It's like this little teaching from last night. We went from being Yachanu B'Midbar, from camping in the Midbar, all of us, many of us, kind of a crazy group, to Ka'ish Echad B'Lev Echad, with like one person with one heart. So that's the idea, on page 70 with Hine Matov.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Please turn to page 70 as we welcome one another, as the rabbi said, with words of welcome attributed to King David. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. 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 Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad.
As we begin our service, just to think, yes, we stand at Mount Sinai this morning, and we receive 10 commandments. We experience revelation, one of the most special Shabbatot of the year. We have a really extraordinary, special opportunity and privilege to hear from Dan Zarin, a renowned expert on climate change. And I'm just thinking about the connection. What's the connection between Shabbat and the climate? Like, what? I don't know. Is there a connection? And Eric Fromm, the great philosopher, sociologist, thinker, he wrote that Shabbat, in its essence, is about the natural world. It's about, just as we're supposed to rest, just as God rested, we have an obligation, a religious imperative to allow our natural world to rest as well. And it's a beautiful thing to link our ritual lives, or the rhythm of Jewish life, to the rhythm and the ritual and the richness, the sacredness of the natural world. And so it's going to be a wonderful morning. It's grateful to each and every one of you. And we'll continue on page 74 with Ma Tovu Ohalecha Yaakov. Cantor Adam and the Sutans.
Ma tovu, ma tovu,
ohalecha Yaakov.
Yisrael, ma
tovu, ma tovu.
Keep going.
Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael.
ואני ברוב חסדך אהבו ביתך אשתחווה היכל קודשך ביראתך. Sultans.
מה טובו, מה טובו, אוהליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל, מה טובו, מה טובו, אוהליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל.
Adonai ahavti mehion beitecha umekom mishkan kevodecha mishkan kvodecha va'ani eshtachave ve'echra evrecha lifnei Adonai osi.
מה טובו, מה טובו, אוהליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל, מה טובו, מה טובו, אוהליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל.
ואני תפילתי לך, אדוני את רצון, אלוהים ברוב חסדך, אלוהים ברוב חסדך, ענני באמת אישך.
מה טובו, מה טובו, אוהליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל, מה טובו, מה טובו, אוהליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל.
משכנותיך ישראל.
Beautifully done.
Thank you, Sutans. So
Awesome.
lovely to sing with you. Hear
Fantastic.
you all. Next time, harmony. I want harmony.
Love it. It's such a great new idea, a great new way of doing it. Okay, dear Lee Kaplan, we're on page 77. One who formed.
Don't let me fall as a stone falls upon the hard ground. And don't let my hands become dry as the twigs of a tree when the wind beats down the last leaves. And when the storm raises dust from the earth with anger and howling, don't let me fall.
I have asked for so much, but as a blade of your grass in a distant wild field lets drop a seed in the lap of the earth and dies away, sow in me your living breath as you sow a seed in the earth. Baruch atah Adonai, roveh kol basar u'mafli lasot.
Name. Andy and Lee. Page 78. Elohim Shema, Kinter Adam.
Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Neshama, Shenatata bi, Shenatata bi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi.
My God.
Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Neshama.
soul you have given me.
Shenatata bi, shenatata bi. Tehora hi, tehora.
The soul you have given me is pure. You created it, you shaped it, you breathed it into me, and you protect it within me. For as long as my soul is within me, I offer thanks to you, Adonai, my God, and God of my ancestors, source of all creation, sovereign of all souls. Praised are you, Adonai, in whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind.
Baruch atah Adonai, asher beyado, nefesh kol chai, veruach kol basari.
And we take the blessing of that pure soul to page 80, and the purity of our soul, Tohorahi, inspires us to bring gratitude to the smallest moments. That's the blessing, the gift, the responsibility of a Neshama Tohara. Page 80, join in the Hebrew, the English, the Amen, whatever it is that feels right for you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, and now the English, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish day from night.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivrim, who opens the eyes of the blind.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who frees the captive.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef kefufim, who lifts up the fallen.
Amen. Page 82. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches the earth over the waters.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamechin mitzadei gaver, who strengthens our steps.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who clothes the naked.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hanoten le'ayev koach, who gives strength to the weary.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who removes sleep from the eyes and slumber from the eyelids. 84.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani b'tzelem Elohim, who made me in the image of God.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shasani ben chorin, who has made me free.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani Yisrael, who has made me a Jew.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who girds Israel with strength.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, oter Yisrael b'tifara, who crowns Israel with splendor.
86, last one. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to engage with words of Torah. We can all say together, Amen. Do we find Sophie and Russell? Did we find the Greens?
Unless they're under another name, we did not.
Are you guys going incognito, or let me
If your last name is
Does anyone
Green, feel free to
see them?
unmute yourself now.
Sophie, Russell, maybe who knows what? I don't see them. All right. Okay. Why don't we offer Cantor? You want to jump?
Perhaps we can invite Rabbi Tara to teach us some text on page 88 or 89.
Excellent idea.
Elu Devarim. These are the things.
Rabbi Feldman.
Which I'm sure. And don't forget to unmute yourself. Always helpful.
Great to see everybody's face. אלו דברים שאין להם שיעור, שאדם אוכל פירותיהם בעולם הזה, והקרן קיימת לו בעולם הבא. Please join with me. These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit in this world while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, which many of you do, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, and accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah, it encompasses and leads to them all. So many mitzvot to choose from.
Thank you, dear Tara. We turn now to page 94. Baruch She'amar. God created the world with speech.
Baruch she'amar v'haya olam, baruch hu, baruch oseh v'reshit, baruch v'oseh, baruch omer v'oseh, baruch gozer u'mchayim, baruch merachem al haaretz, baruch merachem al habriot, baruch meshalem sachar tov l'reav, baruch chai la'ad v'kayam lanetzach, baruch podehu matzil, Baruch Shemo, Bishvachot uvizimrod negadlecha, unshabechecha, unfarecha v'nazkir, Shimcha v'namlicha, Malkeinu Eloheinu, Yachid cheholamim melech meshubach umfoar, Adayar Shemo hagadol, Baruch ata Adonai, Melech mechulal betishbachot.
We turn to 97. Some of us were literature experts. We are students of literature. You know, there's something called an acrostic, a piece of poetry that starts with the next letter of the alphabet. That's what the Ashrei is on pages 97 to 98, starting from Aleph to Taf. I think inviting us in this early stage of our service to think of an aspect of gratitude that relates to each letter of the alphabet. So I'm awake. I can be bold. I can be comforting, and so forth. Page 97.
Ashrei yoshvei vetecha, od yehalelucha selah.
Ashrei am shekachalo, Ashrei am sheronai Elohau.
Tehillah leDavid, aromimcha Elohai hamelech, ve'avarcha shimcha leolam va'ed.
B'chol yom avachecha, v'ala shimcha leolam va'ed.
Gadol Adonai mchulal meod, ve'ligdulato ein cheker.
On Daled, dor l'dor yishabach ma'asecha, u'v'rotecha yagidu now hey.
Hadar kevod hodecha, v'divrei niflotecha asicha, vav.
Vav ezuz notecha yomeru, gdulatecha saprena.
זכר יביעו וצדקתך ירננו חטא.
Nun v'rachum Adonai, erech apayim ugdal chesed.
טוב אדוני לכל ורחמיו על כל מעשיו.
Yoducha Adonai kol ma'asecha, v'chasidecha yivachucha.
כבוד מלכותך יאמרו וגבורתך ידברו.
Lamed leodir livnei adam gvurotav, u'chvod adam malchuto.
מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים וממשלתך בכל דור ודור.
So mech Adonai lechol hanoflim, zokef lechol hakfufim.
עיני כל אליך יסברו ואתה נותן להם את אוכלם בעיתו.
Pay, open up your hands, umaspir lechol charatzon.
צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו וחסיד בכל מעשיו.
Arov Adonai lechol korav, lechol asher yikru v'emet.
רצון ירב יעשה ואת שבתם ישמע ויושיעם.
Shomer Adonai et kol oavav, et kol harshaim yashmin.
תהילת אדוני ידבר פי, ויברך כל בשר שם קדשו לעולם ועד.
ואנחנו נברך יה מעתה ועד עולם. Hallelujah. Next page 100, Psalm 150.
Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah el bekotcho. Hallelujah birkia uzo. Hallelujah begvurotav. Hallelujah kerov gulo. Kol hanshama tehaleya. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Kol hanshama tehaleya. Hallelujah. 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 Beteka shofar. Hallelujah. Benevel vechinor. Hallelujah. Betof umachol. Hallelujah. Beminim veugam. Kol hanshama tehaleya. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Kol hanshama tehaleya. Hallelujah. 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 Betziltzalei shama. Hallelujah. Betziltzalei trua. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Kol hanshama tehaleya. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Kol hanshama tehaleya. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Kol hanshama tehaleya. Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
Page 101. Nishmat kol chai, the breath of all life. Every breath can be a breath of gratitude.
נשמת כל חי תברך את שמך האדוני אלוהינו נשמת כל חי תברך את שמך אדוני אלוהינו All things that live to God thanks must give. Adonai Eloheinu nishmat kol chai tevarech et shimcha Adonai Eloheinu Lai 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 התעצמות עוזך, הגדול בכבוד שמך, הגיבור לנצח והנורא בנורותיך, המלך היושב על כיסא רם וניצח, שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו, שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו, שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו, שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו. וכתוב רננו צדיקים באדוני לשרם ותהילה בפי שערים תתהלל ודברי צדיקים תתברך, שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו, שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו. ובלשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ובמחלות רביבות עמך. בית ישראל ברינה יתבע שמך מלכנו, בכל דור ודור שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו, שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו. Top of page 105. ישתבח שמך ליד מלכנו, האל המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ, כי לך נאה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואימותינו. שיר ושבחה, הלל וזמרה, עוז ממשלה נצח, גדולה וגבורה. תהילה ותפארת קדושה מלכות, ברכות והוראות מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה. מלך אלכי העולמים. Page 106. יתקדל ויקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
בעלמדי ורחירותי וימליך מלכותי בחיי חון וביומי חון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה על שמי דקודשה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תאמירן מעלמה ויאמרו אמן.
If you'd like to rise in your home or in your heart, we do so with as we prepare for Baruch Hu on 108. 108.
Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai.
Yotzer or 110. Linda, you'll be up.
Shalom, borei et hakol, baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu, melech haolam. Yotzer or borei choshech, osei shalom, borei et hakol.
Dear Linda.
Or Hadash al Zion Tayir V'nizker Hulanu Meira Leora. O Hadash al Zion Tayir V'nizker Hulanu Meira Leora. O Hadash al Zion Tayir v'nizker hulanu meira leora. O Hadash al Zion Tayir v'nizker hulanu meira leora. Baruch atah Adonai Yotzer HaMevorot.
112.
Ahava Rabba Haftanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chemla Gedola Vitera, Hamalta Aleinu, Bavur Avoteinu, Veimoteinu, Shebarchu Vecha, Vatlamden Chukei Chaim, Kein Techonenu, Utlamdenu, Amrachem Rachem Aleinu, Vetein Belibeinu, Lehavin Ulhaskil Lishmoa, Lilmod Ulamein, Lishmor Velasod Ulkayim, Et Kol Divrei Talmud Toratecha Be'ahava Ve'aherenu B'toratecha V'dabeg libeinu
112 in the middle.
B'mitzvotecha Ve'achel B'vavenu Li'ahava U'yira Et Shemecha V'lo nevosh V'lo nikashem V'lo nikashel Le'olam va'ed Ki v'Hashem Kodshecha Agadol ve'anora B'atachnu Nagila v'nismecha Nagila v'nismecha Mishuatecha Ve'avienu le'shalom Be'arba kanafot haaretz Ve'tolicheinu komemiyot le'aretzeinu Ki el po'el Yeshuot ata Uvanu b'chata v'keratanu Le'shimcha Agadol Selah be'emet Lehodot lecha U'yachadecha be'ahava Baruch ata Adonai Habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava And we go to the
Tracy and Diana. I hear you.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shem Kevod, Malkuto, Leolam Va'ed.
Okay, and let's go to
Wonderfully
Willie
done,
Benjamin for the
Willie.
Ve'ahavta, page 1.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי בצווך היום על לבביך ושינתם לבניך ודיברת בהם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתיכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem Emet.
Wow. Willie, awesome. Diana, Tracy, beautiful. You guys are wonderful. Love it. We turn now to page 122 with Cantor Leadus and Micha Mocha.
Yam bam bam ba da 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 ya da da hi yam bam yam bam ba da ya da 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 ya da da bye 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 yam bye da la 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 ya da la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 mi chamocha bailim Adonai mi kamocha nedar bakodesh nora tehilot o sefele nora tehilot o sefele yam bam 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 da 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 ay 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 la 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 da 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 la 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 da 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 bye 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 שירה חדשה שבחו גאולים לשמחה על שפת הים יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד היי יאללה לי 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 יאללה לי 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 יאללה לי 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 יא ביי 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 די 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 Lai la 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 So Yisrael Koma be'ezrat Yisrael Please rise Uvadeichenu mecha Yehuda ve'Yisrael Ko aleinu Adonai tzevaot shemo Kedosh Yisrael Baruch Atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael.
If you want to rise for the Amidah on page 124, please feel free.
Adonai Sefatai Tiftach Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El Hagadol, Hagibur ve'hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, ve'konei hakol, ve'zocher chasdei avot ve'imahot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. Page 128. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו בלי שני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, אלוה כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו, מה אדיר שמך בכל הארץ. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו ומלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיגות לך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיגות לך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך, קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש, לעולם לעולם ועד. Let me hear you at home. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיגות לך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיגות לך, לנצח נצחים ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך, קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש, לעולם לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We turn for our prayer for peace to page 142, Sim Shalom.
And I'd like to invite, there he is.
Ah, yes, Frank. This is Frank. Did we find you?
Yes.
Yes, we did.
On page 140 for everyone following at home. Sing along with Frank.
שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל עמך.
ברכנו יוצרנו כולנו כאחד, באור פניך, כי אור פניך נתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו, שים שלום.
שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל עמך.
תורת חיים ואהבת חסד ואהבת חסד וצדקה וברכה ורחמים וחיים ושלום.
שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל עמך.
טוב וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך, בשלומך.
שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל עמך.
ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
Beautifully done.
Thank you, Frank.
Frank and Cantor
It was so
Adam.
much fun.
Beautifully done. We close the Amidah with Oseh Shalom, Cantor?
Let's do an Oseh Shalom.
Never too many prayers for peace at the bottom of 142. Bottom of 142, just before we begin our Torah service.
Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
Okay, with all these beautiful prayers for peace in our mouths, our hearts, and our lips, we begin the Torah service. If you're on there in the Siddur, it's on page 244.
Ein kemocha v'Elohim Adonai, ve'ein kemaasecha, מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. על הרחמים היטיבה ברצונך את ציון. תבנה חומות ירושלים, תבנה חומות ירושלים. כי בך לבד בטחנו, מלך אלרם ונישא, אדון עולמים. כי מציון תצא תורה, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים.
248.
ברוך שנתן תורה, תורה, ברוך שנתן תורה, תורה, לעמו ישראל בקדושתו.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kahadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kahadosh Shemo.
Gadlul Adonai, Uneromema Shemo Yachtav.
Lecha Adonai Hagedol v'Hagevod. בשמיים ובארץ, כי כל בשמיים ובארץ, לך אדוני הממלכה, וימית נעשה לכל ראש. All right. We've got a lot of Torah readers today. This is so exciting. Okay. Shall I call up? Okay. Vayazor hakol hahochim bav nomar amen. Ya'amod Eli ben Shepsel veYehudit harishon le'aliyah leTorah. We call to the Torah the first Ole, Peter Tufel. Okay, hold on, there he is.
Hey.
Okay, oh, good, you're unmuted. And also reading for this Aliyah is Leah Bat David, Debbie Tartel. Are you there as well? Yes, I see her. Okay, and Debbie.
Okay,
Good
unmuted.
Excellent. And we're almost ready for Pete to say the brachot.
Okay. Do I go?
Yes.
Baruch Hu es Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Voed. Baruch Ato Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, asher bocha bonu mikol ha'amim, v'notan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayishama Yitero Kohen Midyan Chotein Moshe et Kol Asher Asa Elohim LeMoshe uYisrael Amo Ki hotzi Adonai et Yisrael mi Mitzrayim. Vayikach Yitro chotein Moshe et Zipora eshet Moshe achar shilucheha ve'et shanei baneha asher shehem ha'echad Gershom ki amar ger hayiti be'eretz nachriya.
Beautifully done.
Wow.
Shkochech.
Pete, you're up.
Unmute Pete and the blessing after.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, asher notan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nota b'tokenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Beautiful, beautiful,
Readers,
beautiful.
to our chanters, beautiful job.
Very beautiful chanting, Pete. Wonderful blessing. Mivarech, you're the blesser. Thank you. Cantor.
Ya'amod Trevor Boshnak. Shani.
Baruch et Adonai Hamavara.
Baruch Adonai Borach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamavara Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'harbanu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Sign you up for video. I'll mute you. I am muted myself.
You're unmuted. We hear you, Larry.
You hear me? Well, I got all these notes up there.
All right.
Andre, you're up.
Beshem Hayhad Eliezer Ki Elohei Avi Ve'esri Ve'yatzileni Mecheref Paro Vayavo Yitro Hoten Moshe Ubanav Ve'ishto El Moshe El Hamidvar Asher Hu Hone Sham El HaElohim
Vayomer El Moshe Ani Chotencha Yitro Ba Elecha V'ishtecha Ushnei B'neicha Ima Yotze Moshe Likrat Choteno V'ishtachu v'yishaklo V'yishalu ish l're'ehu Shalom Yavu ha'ohela.
Beautiful. Raina.
ויספר משה לכותנו את כל אשר עשה אדוני לפרעה ומצרים על אודות ישראל את כל התלאה אשר מסעתם בדרך ויצילם אדוני ויחד יתרו על כל הטובה אשר עשה אדוני לישראל אשר הצילו מיד מצרים.
ויאמר יתרו ברוך אדוני אשר הציל אתכם מיד מצרים ומיד פרעה אשר הציל את העם מתחת יד מצרים.
Trevor.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'haye olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen.
Andrea, Larry, beautiful chanting. Your bar mitzvah was not last week, as was Lena's. Lena, amazing. You just came off your bat mitzvah and chanted a bunch of verses so beautifully again. Feels like you're here. Thank you. Trevor, your voice is so low. What happened? Good for you. Mazel tov, Amy and Jared. Okay, Cantor.
We are calling for the Olim. Renee and Michael Zarin for their 65th anniversary.
Baruch Adonai HaBarak.
Baruch Adonai HaBarak Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai HaBarak Leolam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bocha bonu mikol ha'amim. Notan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Up first is Billy Oken.
Yay, Billy.
Video isn't on.
What?
We're having some technical difficulties with Billy. Billy, can you hear us? Are you there?
There you are, Billy.
There he is.
Should I start?
Take it away.
Okay. Ata yadati hi gadol Adonai mikol ha'adlohim hi adabar asher zaru alehem. Yakya yitro otien she ola uzerahim Elohim Vayavel Aharo Behon Bekane Israel Neelcho Lechem Otenu She Lefane Elohim. Yahi Mahara Ayom Moshe Ishmot Etha Vayomao Am Al Moshe Min Habocher
Great job, Billy. Liam, you're up next. We're on verse 14.
ויחותן משה
את כל אשר הוא עושה לעם, ויאמר, מה הדבר הזה אשר את עושה לעם? מדוע אתה יושב לבדך, וכל העם נציב עליך מן בוקר עד ערב? ויאמר משה לחותנו, כי יבוא אלי העם לדרוש אלוהים, כי יהיה לעם דבר בא אלי, ושפטתי בין איש ובין רעהו, והודעתי את חוקי אלוהים ואת תורתיו.
Tracy.
I can't hear you.
Okay. Amen. Vayomer Hoten Moshe Elav Lo Tov Hadavar Asher Ata Oseh Novo Tibol Gam Ata Gam Ha'am Hazeh Asher Imach Ki Kavein Mimecha Hadavar Lo Tukal Asohu Levadecha Ata Shema Bekoli Iyasecha Vihi Elohim Imach Eye Ata Le'am Mu Elohim Vehaveta Ata El Hadivarim El Elohim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'hayeh lanu b'dvareinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. So, Billy and Liam, thank you a ton for your wonderful chanting, your hard work, your care, your desire to deepen your connection to Torah. Tracy, is always beautiful chanting. Thank you a ton. And I know you couldn't have offered Shema earlier without the crucial help of your beautiful daughter, Diana. I'm thinking, Mr. and Mrs. Zarin, Renee and Michael, about the number 65, which corresponds in Hebrew to the word Hallel. The word Hallel it means a lot of things, but it's the portion of the service that is added for every holiday. And it's added for every holiday because it is all about expressing the joy that we know and we feel for all of the blessings that have come to us. So for each of the for Passover, we're free, and for Shavuot, we receive Torah. Sukkot, we've traveled through the wilderness and connected with God and nature. You people, between your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, I wish I knew the number of all of them. All of them. I know that I know that it's a very extraordinary number of grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I'm quite certain, have passed on to them this sacred value of being able to connect to what's most precious and most essential, to all of the reasons to hallel, to make joy and generate a sense of gratitude and meaning and purpose. And you certainly have been doing that for Temple Beth-El for many, many years. And everyone who knows you knows this about you. So thank you to all of the hallel, the hallelujah that you've brought to the world, to Temple Beth-El, most importantly to your family and to each other. And we're grateful. You want to share a thought?
Thank you, Rabbi. That's 13 grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
And children.
Including, no, that would be 16.
Correct.
So two great-grandchildren, which we're happy to have very recently, Abigail and Henry.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi.
Mazel tov to you all. 65, amazing. Okay. We now are going to turn our thoughts, all this love and joy, this hallel that we've generated, helps us to strengthen, deepen our prayers for healing for those in our lives in need of healing of body, a healing of soul and spirit. So please share the name in the chat of a loved one you're thinking about. And we offer this prayer with really the faith, the strong conviction that when we gather our love together, we direct it out, we translate it into language, it really makes a difference. It makes a difference. Misha Berach 253.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of it, and let us say,
Turn from our prayer for healing to our prayer for the congregation first. That's you, Elaine, and then Karen and Aaron, prayer for our nation. 258, Elaine.
Okay, good morning, all. Shabbat Shalom. Source of all being, may the children of this community learn these passions from us: love of Torah, devotion and prayer, and support of the needy. May we guide with integrity, and may our leadership be in your service. May those who teach and nourish us be blessed with satisfaction, and may we appreciate their time and their devotion. Bless us with the fruits of wisdom and understanding, and may our efforts bring fulfillment and joy.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Beautiful.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thus says Adonai, this is what I desire, to unlock the fetters of wickedness and untie the cords of lawlessness, to let the oppressed go free and to break off every yoke. Share your bread with the hungry and take the wretched poor into your home. When you see the naked, give clothing and do not ignore your own kin. If you banish the yoke from your midst, the menacing hand, the evil speech, if you offer compassion to the hungry and satisfy the famished creature, then your light shall shine in darkness. O guardian of life, O guardian of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we need, for what we have, by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have died in defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us to all appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and may our country be sound in body and spirit. Amen.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Aaron. Thank you. Vinu Sheba Shamayim 259, a prayer for Israel.
Barech ברך את מדינת ישראל, ראשית צמיחת גאולתנו, הגן עליה בעברת חסדך, ופרוס עליה סוכת שלומך. אבינו, אבינו שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו. אבינו, אבינו שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו. ושלח אורך ועמיתך לראשיה שריה ויועציה ויועציה, ותקנם ביצה טובה, ותקנם ביצה טובה מלפניך. אבינו, אבינו שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו. אבינו, אבינו שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו. ונתת שלום בארץ, ושמחת עולם יושבנו מרמד. אבינו, אבינו שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו. אבינו, אבינו שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו. ונאמר, ונאמר, אמן.
Beautiful. We'll raise the Torah, and then we'll ask Rabbi Tara to introduce our wonderful speaker. So we raise the Torah. If you're following along, it's on page 252. V'zot haTorah asher sam Okay, Rabbi Tara, you are up. Thank you.
So I am so thrilled that this Shabbat is finally happening. We've been planning it for, it feels like even a couple of years trying to make this moment happen. So what a joy to be here. Quick introduction. So welcome home to Dan Zarin. Since 2010, Dan has been the Senior Director of Programs for the Climate and Land Use Alliance, which is a collaborative of major philanthropies whose mission is to help realize the potential of forests and agricultural lands to mitigate climate change, benefit people, and protect the environment. And this is an organization that Daniel was central in creating. He was previously the Senior Advisor to the David and Lucille Packard Foundation. From 1995 to 2009, Dan Zarin was a university professor, first at the University of New Hampshire and then at the University of Florida. He has a BA in history, a master's of forest science from Yale University, and a PhD in geology from the University of Pennsylvania. He's published widely on forest ecology, management, and policy, and the interface between deforestation and climate change. He is the son of Renee and Michael Zarin, who have been members, I think, for about 5 decades. He became a bar mitzvah here, maybe on this very bima that we are virtually on, and was confirmed here and was the temple of the president of the Junior Temple Club, JTC. Big claim to fame. Forget all the other stuff. He has 3 children, Carlos and Kevin and Raquel, who with her husband Will are parents of recently born twins, Abigail and Henry, making him a grandfather, and Renee and Mike, that makes you great grandparents. I remember celebrating that not too long ago. So without further ado, Daniel Zarin.
Oh.
Thank you very much, Rabbi, for that kind introduction. Let me just see if I can share my screen here with you. Is that working?
Yes. We
And
see
can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Indeed.
Okay, great. Let me just put that in presentation mode. See if that works. There we go. All right. Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. It's been quite a while since I've been even virtually in Temple of Beth-El. Some time ago, when I was still living with my wonderful parents, the husband of my mother's best friend suffered a heart attack. He was probably about the age I am now, maybe younger. My mother would know. In the grand scheme of things, this was not a major global event. Men my age have heart attacks with great frequency. Roughly every 34 seconds, someone somewhere has a heart attack. Fortunately, this man, my mother's friend's husband, survived and thrived. Their children went on to live wonderful lives and to bless their parents with many grandchildren. His life story continued to unfold over the course of the past several decades, because in the aftermath of his heart attack, he received and followed the best available medical information and expert advice, informed by real science, even though it required him to radically change his lifestyle from one that was literally killing him to one which restored him to health. He completely altered his diet, and he got up off his keister and walked everywhere, miles and miles and miles every day. I'm telling you this story because we all need to accept, and more importantly, to act upon the best available climate science as if our lives depend on it, because collectively they do. I want to read this quote to you. The worst effects of a greenhouse-induced climate cataclysm can be averted. And the sooner action is taken, the more effective it will be. Conversely, the longer a policy response is delayed, the greater the warming that will have accumulated in the bank, and the more radical the measures that will be required to prevent further climate upheaval. This wonderful, prescient quote is over 30 years old. And as you can see, I stole the title for my talk with you today from its source. The point I want to make with this quote is that radical measures are needed now, precisely because we've waited so long to take serious action. And chaos is already manifesting. With climate change, we are well past the warning stage. We've just been through a year when the 10 plagues we recited at our virtual seders read like the evening news. Most experts actually believe the pandemic could have been prevented with adequate attention to deforestation and the related trade in wildlife. And deforestation contributes to climate change. With inadequate attention, climate change impacts will be worse than what we've experienced from the pandemic. The global average temperature on the Earth's surface is up over 1 degree Celsius from pre-industrial times. That is, from when humans began an uncontrolled experiment in changing atmospheric chemistry. Now, 1 degree does not sound like a lot, but if your body temperature was up 1 degree Celsius, it would be, in more familiar terms, 100.4 Fahrenheit, and you would feel uncomfortably feverish. But that's probably an underestimate of how the planet is doing overall, because proportionately, the temperature change for the Earth is on the order of a 5 to 7% increase on average. 5% would be equivalent to raising your fever to 103.5. And I'm talking here about averages, but it's the extremes that concentrate our immediate danger. More intense hurricanes like we've seen in the Gulf and the Caribbean, intense heat and drought conditions driving devastating fires in California, Australia, and elsewhere. In 2007, at the launch of the 4th assessment report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, John Holdren, who was then the president of the American Association for the Advancement of Science and later became President Obama's science advisor, famously noted that we basically have 3 choices: mitigation, adaptation, and suffering. We're going to do some of each. The question is what the mix is going to be. The more mitigation we do, the less adaptation will be required, and the less suffering there will be. Well, in the past few decades, we've collectively chosen to do more suffering. But the small and yet important detail that Dr. Holdren did not mention is critical. The people doing the choosing are not the people suffering. Rather, the choices of the wealthy and the powerful are causing suffering among the poor and powerless. The top 1% emit more greenhouse gas emissions than the bottom 50%. In so doing, we collectively are disempowering, disenfranchising, and destroying the lives of people less fortunate than ourselves. This next slide can be a little intimidating, but I feel the need to share, always in these kinds of talks, some basic climate change math. I try to keep this to a short set of numbers, and these are the ones I think are critical. Carbon dioxide emissions are most of the problem, about 80% of the problem. There are other emissions like methane that are also important, about 20% of the problem. The carbon dioxide emissions have 3 main components. They add up to about 46 billion tons of emissions each year. This is 2019 data. About 37 from fossil fuels, 4 from the manufacture of cement, and 5.5 from the net emissions associated with land use change. I may say a little more about that later. But you can see it's mostly fossil fuels. The others are on the order of 10 to 12 or 15%. Now, what happens to these emissions? About half of them end up in the atmosphere. Where does the other half go? It goes, half of that other half, so about a quarter of our CO2 emissions actually get removed from the atmosphere by intact ecosystems on land, mostly forests. We'd be a lot worse off without them. The oceans, which are in a kind of dynamic equilibrium with the atmosphere, absorb the rest. And that's what leads to this problem of ocean acidification that some of you have heard about, I'm sure. Now, we're already past this 1 degree Celsius increase. What that means when atmospheric scientists do the math is that we only have at most 500 billion tons of emissions more that we can emit and still keep the temperature increase under 2 degrees Celsius. Well, why does that matter? Well, when we look at all of the models, it looks like if we can keep the temperature change under 2 degrees Celsius, it gives us an okay chance, about a 2/3 chance of avoiding catastrophe. And by catastrophe, what I mean are temperatures getting out of control to a point where they will be hotter than at any time since our species emerged a few million years ago. 1.5 degrees would be better. than 2, certainly. And there's a lot of momentum around trying to keep things at under 1.5 degrees, but that will be challenging. In addition, melting permafrost, the potential decline of boreal forests or forests in the Amazon could each release another 100 billion tons of carbon dioxide. And I'll talk about those things in a minute. But obviously that would shrink this cap of what we have left to emit. What makes things even trickier is that here on Earth, there are a growing number of very concerning phenomena underway as a result of the climate change that has already occurred. And each of these will itself have an effect on climate change and its impacts. Many of these intersect and are likely to create cascading domino effects that will make things worse. What we don't precisely know are the thresholds associated with each of these phenomena. I want to just walk through an example for you here. We're losing Arctic sea ice at a rapid rate. That's B in the figure that you're looking at now. Now, the last time I gave a talk to a Temple Beth-El audience was in the early 1980s, when, as the rabbi referenced, I was president of the Junior Temple Club. At that time, the aerial extent of Arctic sea ice in the summer was about the size of the continental United States. In the ensuing decades, that area of summertime Arctic ice has lost the equivalent of all of the states east of the Mississippi. If we get beyond 2 degrees Celsius, there won't be any Arctic sea ice left in the summer. You might be thinking that's going to increase sea level, but on that you'd be wrong. Sea ice is already in the sea, so melting it won't change the sea level, just like an ice cube in your drink won't change the level of the drink in the glass when it melts. We worry a lot about melting glaciers on land increasing the sea level. If they all melted, that could add over 200 feet of sea level rise, and every coastal city in the world would be under a lot of water. But that's another story and depends mostly on what happens in Antarctica and in Greenland. Those are letters I, J, and G in the figure. But less sea ice in the Arctic summer contributes to regional warming, because a frozen white surface that sea ice has reflects solar radiation back into space, while the dark liquid surface of the water absorbs it and slowly equilibrates with the surrounding atmosphere. So when an area the size of the eastern US is subtracted from the Arctic sea ice in the summer, the regional warming can be expected to drive more permafrost melt and more fires in boreal regions. That's D and H in your figure, and that's already happening. Those two phenomena, permafrost melt and fires in boreal regions, mean more CO2 emissions and hence more warming. And this regional warming induced by the loss of sea ice also accelerates melting of the Greenland ice sheet, which does impact sea level. And the meltwater from both the Arctic sea ice and the Greenland ice sheets add a huge influx of fresh cold water into the Atlantic, impacting ocean circulation in ways that slow the transportation of heat away from low latitudes. That's the letter C in the figure. And that's where this gets a little complex, because most people don't think of ocean currents as huge energy conveyor belts. But that's actually a reasonable approximation of the Gulf Stream, which carries warm water from the Gulf of Mexico into the North Atlantic. But when huge volumes of cold fresh water from the melted Arctic ice and the Greenland ice sheets are pouring into the North Atlantic, they slow the conveyor belt. This has impacts on climate as far away as the Amazon, making it hotter and drier, resulting in more global warming as the Amazon's forests burn and release more carbon dioxide as a result. That's A in the figure. And more regional warming and drying because the forests that are lost are no longer pumping huge quantities of water out into the atmosphere, which is how the Amazon forest normally makes about half of its own rainfall and supplies rainfall to the most productive agricultural regions of South America. Now, if this gets really bad, each of these impacts, boreal forest fires, permafrost loss, Amazon forest fires, like I listed in the previous slide, each of them could emit up to 100 billion tons more carbon dioxide, further reducing that emission budget of only 500 billion tons, which is really all we have left. What all this means is that warming actually begets more warming. And it's very likely that if we exceed those thresholds that we don't precisely know, and then slam the brakes on burning fossil fuels, it will be too late to stop the Earth from shifting into a new climate state that is radically different from anything experienced during the brief few million years in which humans have existed on the planet. We don't precisely know where those thresholds lie. Some may already have been exceeded, and we're pretty close to the others. Now, both fortunately and unfortunately, what we need to do is as clear today as it was 30 years ago. We need to stop fossil fuel emissions. We need to stop cement emissions. And we need to stop deforestation and degrading forests. And to do that, we need to stop investing vast sums of public and private money into these activities. At the same time, we need to accelerate the shift to renewable energy and vehicle electrification. We need to more quickly employ building materials that, unlike cement and steel, don't produce huge carbon dioxide emissions. And we need to protect forests. And at the same time, we need to increase removal of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere in a variety of different ways. All of this means we need to rapidly shift both our consumption and our investment, public and private, away from causing the problem and toward promoting solutions. In the US, our outside individual footprints of emissions are mostly related to diet and transportation. Red meat and air travel are the two things at the top of the list for most of us. And our investment choices, both individual investment choices, corporate investment choices, and government policy related investments and subsidies and incentives have huge impacts. As just one example, there is at least $5 billion in investment from major US-based investment houses that's contributing to deforestation in the Amazon every year. To give you a sense of what this really means we would need to do if we're aiming to stay a little more cautiously under 1.5 degrees, it means ramping up renewables 6 times faster than is happening now, accelerating the transition to electric vehicles by over 20 times, phasing out coal power globally 5 times faster, increasing the use of low carbon fuels 8 times faster, increasing tree cover 5 times faster, and increasing by 50% faster the electrification of industry. Are we capable of doing that during this decade, which is really the critical decade we have because the budget we have left for emissions is only going to last about 10 years at current rates? Are we capable of doing that? I'm sure we are. But will we? I don't know. It would be very hard to do this much this fast. If we'd started 30 years ago, it would have been much easier, but we didn't. So apologies to all the kids in who are listening. It's worth noting, I think, though, that in the US, the only economic shifts that approximate the rate at which these changes need to occur happened during World War II. That was hard, but we did it. And unlike me, I think looking at the group here, some of you listening might actually remember that. Now, the investments we're going to make in the US and globally around COVID recovery could really help. We had a dip in fossil fuel emissions last year. If we don't invest in the right directions, that dip will be very short-lived. We need to act now. You'll all be familiar with the frogs in the pot metaphor, where the frogs don't realize the water they're in is getting hotter, so they die. Well, we're both in the pot And we have a hand on the knob controlling the temperature. We can turn it off. The question is, will we, and when? Thank you very much.
So that's incredibly powerful and sobering presentation. We're going to have at the close of the service, if people want to stay on, we can do a brief Q&A. There's so many questions and thoughts that arise from this information. And as hard as it is to hear, I'm deeply thankful that you have shared it and for your work. If we get to the essence of all these prayers we're offering this morning, we find a deep reverence for creation and our place within it. And you've spoken to that this morning. So thank you so much, Daniel.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to offer Elenu. Before we do, I just want to share a thought. Dan, very, very powerful. I grew up in a home of in Columbus, Ohio. I'm 60, where in 1970, my mom banned the use of a dryer in our home, and my dad somehow became this different kind of person who was willing to hang the washed clothes on a line. We had a compost in our backyard. More importantly than my family is I'm just thinking about your parents who I've learned they've blessed me with a very profound nudge, reminder to have a sense of purpose, a deep sense of purpose, and have the courage to pursue that purpose and that mission. And don't forget that it's at the core, the foundation of life. My guess is that you heard some of these messages you have throughout your life from your parents, and you share them with your children and twins. Is that right? Yes. And it translates, Mike and Renee, it translates your beautiful and blessed, constant focus on let's really put our values front and center in our lives and live them and try to make them a reality. So thank you to all of the Zarans, and to you, Tara, for making this happen, because none of this would have happened, Tara, without your passion and unbelievable energy around making the world a better place, the environment a better place. You've done that a great job with your daughter and son as well. Okay, Elenu on 282, L'taken olam b'malchut Shaddai. It's our job, l'taken, to make a tikkun, to repair the world and clean it, keep the temperature down. 282.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
287.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ היום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
As always, remember loved ones before coming to our end. Kaddish is on 294. If you'd like to share the name of a loved one, you can feel free to put it in the chat. And we're remembering here at Beth-El beloved grandma Sonia Ehrlich, Jordana and Stan's grandmother and great grandma of Aiden, Zachary, and Jacob. We remember in the last 30 days, Shloshim, Carrie Baker, Michelle Shelley Bearer, Rosalind Berger, Jeffrey Doppelt, Robert Gilbert, Beatrice Goldberg, and William Winston. And we remember those whose yortzeit falls on the Shabbat, the anniversary of their passing. Layla Allen and Dari Arbital, Ruth Barshop and James Belser, Lillian Beanstalk and Gerald Cohen, Robin Hirschhorn Cohen and Mark Diamond, Sidney Friedland and Joyce Gerla, Arthur Grain and Molly Greenberg, Sigmund Hand and Philip Lear, Michael Lipstein and Myrna Hausman Miller, Alan Pensky, Samuel Rubin, Dorothy Schwartz and Leon Schwartz, Paul Sherman, and William Scheinfeld. May all of their memories be a blessing. And we include all the names of others who were shared in the chat. 294. Yikadal v'kadash Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'yalma divrach chiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh. V'chayechon v'yamechon v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. V'bagala v'zman kariv v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'l'omei maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei dekudesha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran b'yalma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom b'imromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imru
Amen.
Okay. Rabbi Tara, you're going to offer announcements. Is that the case? Yes? Thank
Yes,
you.
got it covered.
Great.
So first and foremost, thank you so much to Daniel Zarin. Really profound words, frightening words. May they promote us not to lean to despair, but to take action. And please stay on after the service if you want to, if you have a specific question. We'll do a brief Q&A. To our Torah readers, wow, that was so magnificent and so intergenerational. Debbie Tartell and the Kazams, and Lena back for a second Shabbat, and Billy Oken and Liam Golan and Tracy Feldman, and Cantor Adam, who did all the preparation with them as well. Thank you so much. Really, what a rich, uplifting morning. And our service participants, the Sutton family and Lee Kaplan and Linda Diamond and Willie Benjamin and Tracy and Frank and Pete and Trevor and the Zarins. Maybe it's too much to list everyone, and Elaine and Karen and Aaron and the Still Shifts, Jen, who helps really to coordinate every Shabbat for our wonderful lay service and then brings them in for these special moments. Thank you. And to Stu for keeping us going on the tech end. A few announcements, just keep your attention because there's a lot coming up. If you're going through the prayers and you know you want to improve your Hebrew, you can join our educator, David Wolf, on Mondays at 8 or Wednesdays at 7 for Prayer Book Hebrew. Tomorrow, we have our Brotherhood monthly meeting in which we will have the opportunity to hear from Andrew Laufer, who is a lawyer who specializes in civil rights and criminal defense. Sisterhood book discussion is happening on Monday, February 8th at 7:30. The book is The 100 Most Jewish Foods. February 13th, Saturday evening, Havdalah, 5 p.m. We're going to have an amazing opportunity to hear from Jeanette Peretz Elsner, who's going to be speaking about inclusion, her own journey living with MS, but really thinking about how we can be more inclusive. That will be an hour, 5 to 6, concluding with Havdalah on February 13th. And February 21st, that's a Sunday at 10 a.m., we have a speaker from the ADL, Amy Feynman, speaking about how we can combat hate, something that's very related to the upcoming holiday of Purim, which I have a lot of announcements about, but I think that's enough. We can only hold so much in our brains. Purim's going to be great, and we'll be letting you know about it. So that's all.
Great. I'll just add, I will add one final announcement, which is next month, our special Shabbat we're going to have another wonderful speaker, very different subject on Mati Friedman. He's going to focus on a book that he wrote a couple years ago called the Aleppo Codex. I put a link to the book in a chat. I don't know if you all know that about 2 years ago, Stu Botwinick and Marge Cursius discovered, because of John Hirsch, a Torah scroll, it seems one of the oldest intact Torah scrolls in North America. It's between 400 and 500 years old, very legible. We own it at Temple Beth-El. It's in our care. And in a month, March 13th, the special Shabbat, is going to be an introduction and kind of a launch, a congregational launch of our work that's going to be coming in the many months ahead. And Mati Friedman's book, the Aleppo Codex, was on one of the oldest intact texts anywhere in the world. It's in Jerusalem. It's called the Aleppo Codex. So that's for coming weeks. Okay, I think Cantor, Adam, we're going to conclude, right, with the Shamru, Kiddush, and Motzi. You are going to be joined. The still shifts are going to help you do this, right?
They're actually going to do it.
They're going to help all of us do it. So the Shamru, Kiddush, and Motzi close with the Don Olam, and then we get to stay on for question and answer with
for virtual bagels.
Okay, where are the still shifts?
Here we are.
Are 2 of the 3.
Wait, there's a third here.
He's here.
He's eating challah.
Are we going back and forth, Cantor, or you just want us to sing?
We can go back and forth, or we can take the whole thing if you like it.
All right, let's just do it.
Okay.
Let's do it. Sing.
Sure.
V'shamru
b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam b'ni uvein b'nei Yisrael od hi le'olam v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam uvayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash Shabbat vayinafash v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam.
Kain Barach Adonai.
Family is up next. Kain Barach Adonai, v'yom ha'shabbat v'kodshehu. Where are the Sutans? The Sutans. Are they here? There they are.
Yay, Rachie.
Unmute.
Unmute. There we are.
we go.
Okay.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagaf.
Amen.
Amen.
And then look what we found.
Found challah.
Oh, wow. That's a
Wow.
challah.
Very interesting. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen.
Amen. We'll conclude with Adon Olam, and then we'll shift to question and answer. We're on page we're on 321. Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yetzir nivra li'ek nasa
חי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה והוא אחד ואין שני להמשילו להגבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמשרה והוא אלי וחי גואלי וצור חבלי ביצרה והוא ניסי ומנוס לי מנת כוסי ביום מקרא בידו על כדרוכי בית אישן ויעירה ועם רוחי גביעתי אדוני לי ולא יירא.
Beautiful. Okay. Questions, can we maybe send them in the chat or Tara House? Tara, Dan, do you have a preference?